Hello, scholars. Welcome to week 2 of our public speaking class. This is SPT 1113, and I am your instructor, Dr. James Hudson. This week, as outlined in your introduction, we will be discussing Chapter 2, which is about building your confidence, and we'll also be discussing Chapter 16, and I believe Chapter 16 focuses on special occasion speeches. But this video is specifically for Chapter 2, Building Your Confidence. So what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen again so that I can pull up my slides. And hopefully you can see. So, Chapter 2, Building Your Confidence. So when we talk about confidence or the lack thereof, in terms of public speaking, generally we're discussing some form of anxiety or apprehension to public speaking. This is very common for individuals, particularly in the United States. There's even suggestion and research that public speaking or fear of public speaking is ranked just as high as the fear of death in the United States. So we know that this is a very common issue that many people face and many people have to deal with. And because of that, there are several strategies that have been discussed in various forms of literature and videos that we're going to talk about today. So in terms of causes of speech anxiety, there are two suggested things. One of these is temperament, and the other is a response to uncertainty. So basically, these fall under two varying categories of speech anxiety. The first category is referred to in some cases as trait anxiety. And essentially, trait anxiety is a general tendency to experience speech apprehension regardless of a situation. And some people like to suggest that this is based on your personality. This is an inherent characteristic of you and who you are. Basically, this is the situation for many individuals who are often labeled as shy. Sometimes when people have low self-esteem and low self-image and a certain level of low self-efficacy, they will fall under the category of trait anxiety. The other type of anxiety is called state anxiety or situational anxiety. And situational anxiety, just as the name implies, is based on various characteristics of the situation rather than the individual. So depending on what's going on, what the context or the environment is like, that will play a major role in determining whether or not an individual experiences anxiety or situational anxiety. So for instance, some textbooks and some research suggests that males in particular will typically experience anxiety or public speaking anxiety if they're speaking to an audience that has a different cultural background than they do. So if an individual who is male has to speak before a group of elderly people, it's far more likely that they will experience public speaking anxiety over maybe a female per se. That's just an example. So when we talk about situational anxiety and the idea that there are a certain amount of things that people typically are uncertain about in these various situations because they're not familiar with them, the book discusses an extensive list of various things that you might be uncertain about as a public speaker. One of these things is the speaker's role. Am I supposed to be a leader? Am I supposed to be an educator? Am I supposed to be an entertainer? What exactly is my purpose or my role in this position? How is this experience going to really shape my idea about who I am or the ideas of my audience members about who I am in this particular situation? Also, many people have questions or uncertainty about their speaking ability. Can I do this? Am I a good speaker? A lot of people don't even like their voices. So some people might question, does my voice even sound good? Is it clear? Am I clearly articulating the things that I'm saying? Am I capable of really getting my message across. In the last chapter, chapter 1, we talked about the idea that the process of communication is using messages to generate meaning. Your ultimate goal in communication is to generate some form of meaning, some form of understanding for your audience. So it makes sense that some people might be uncertain about their ability to clearly articulate their thoughts and feelings in a way that will enable their audience to gain meaning and understanding from what they're sharing. Also, some people might be uncertain about whether or not their ideas will be readily accepted. We recognize that humans in general, are social beings and we want to be accepted. We have this whole study of impression management and making sure that the message that we send just by our mere existence is one that we're okay with sharing with individuals. So sometimes when we have personal thoughts and feelings, we have reservation about whether or not those things will be acceptable, whether or not we will be ostracized after we have talked about the thing that we're supposedly the expert on. Aristotle suggests that if we're going to be ethical or credible speakers, then we have to actually be knowledgeable about our topics. And some people just question the idea of whether they're prepared enough to be that expert, someone worth listening to regarding a particular topic. Some people have questions of the audience's response. How will they react to me? How will they think about me after this presentation? Will they think that I did a good job, or will they laugh at me? Will they talk about me? In this day and age, there may even be the question, are they going to record me and put me on social media and then make a whole mockery of me? So there are all types of things that people might consider when they're thinking about how the audience is going to respond. Additionally, right in with that idea of how the audience is going to respond, there's the idea of how others will evaluate me. Will they think that I'm a good speaker, or better yet, will they think that I'm a good person after they have listened to my presentation? Additionally, there may be questions about the setting. Maybe if it's a very large setting, a large auditorium, maybe you might have questions about whether or not you're able to project your voice very well. If there is an area that maybe there are steps coming down the stage, you may have questions of whether or not it's safe for you to even walk on this stage. Sometimes there are cords and you're thinking, oh man, am I going to hurt myself? Is this a space that's conducive to me sharing my message in the way that I feel comfortable sharing that message? Also, in terms of technology, will the technology work? Will my PowerPoints flow the way that they should, or am I going to get stuck and not be able to, look the way I want to look during my presentation? Maybe I'll look ill prepared if I have some issue with my technology. So all of these things are questions that people may ask and may have anxieties about when they're preparing to present their presentation. Now we're to the good stuff. These are the suggestions that many individuals have come together to propose as things that we can do to prepare ourselves to overcome anxiety, or in some cases, not necessarily overcome anxiety, but at least mask the manifestations of our anxiety. So one of the things we can do to build our confidence is try various relaxation techniques. Some of these include breathing exercises. Some of these include applying tension to certain areas of our body and then releasing. Some people would suggest that if you clasp your hands and hold real tight and put a lot of energy into clasping your hands and then you release, that will help you relax a little bit. But one of the really common relaxation techniques involves breathing. So one that I do is called 4-7-8. This is where you inhale for 4 counts. So as you're inhaling, you would count to 4. You would hold your breath for 7 counts, and then you would release slowly with a hissing sound for 8 counts. And that is supposed to help you. And I found it to be very beneficial myself. Relabeling, this deals with not the physical element of relaxation or the physical element of increasing your confidence, but the mental element, the idea that we have the power through our words to convince ourselves that we're in a different position. It's about having positive self-talk. So a lot of times when we're anxious, we focus on the negativity. We focus on the idea that we really don't want to do this. We're uncomfortable. We haven't done well in the past. We think of all the negative things associated with the situation because we generally do not want to actually do the presentation. When we relabel, we try to put a positive frame on this negative idea. We try to put our minds in a positive way so that we can reshape the way that we really think about what we're actually about to do. So rather than saying nervous, we might say, oh, I feel so energized, because literally you do feel energized when you experience anxiety. We like to say, oh, I have butterflies in my stomach and I'm shaking, I have all this extra energy. But if you really think about it, when we do get nervous, we experience what's called the fight or flight response. And the fight or flight response basically is what our body does when we experience fear. Basically, adrenaline is released to give us extra energy to either fight off um, whatever thing may be causing our fear, or to either escape from it, to flee. So when we experience anxiety, we are literally getting a boost of energy. So if you can reshape that, reframe it and say, oh, I feel so energized, I'm going to use this energy to be a dynamic speaker, to work the room, to project my voice, to do all of those things, it could potentially have a positive impact on you. And while you're saying these things, you also want to practice visualization. So basically, you want to visualize your success, visualize your happiness, visualize your pleasant feelings during your presentation. Not only visualize how you're feeling, but visualize the response of your audience. See smiling faces. Think about what it's going to feel like when you get a standing ovation. Think about what it's going to be like to be in the space, to be on the stage, to smoothly transition from point to point. All of that is extremely important and can be quite beneficial. So, in regard to building your confidence before the day of the speech, we could do all of those practices, which are things that we would normally do right around, right before we start our speech, on the day of our speech, things of that nature. But well before we start our speech, we want to start planning and preparing as early as possible. As soon as you can start planning, you want to do that. So you want to develop an outline. You want to start brainstorming about what you could potentially talk about. You want to do as much research on your topic as possible so that you can have an idea about what are the major things connected to this topic that I'd like to share during my presentation. Also, what are some of the supporting items that I may include? What are some presentation aids that I could include? What are some maybe short videos I might be willing to add to my presentation? What are some quotes and sayings that might help reinforce the idea? Also, you might even think about a few illustrations, hypothetical illustrations or short illustrations that paint a picture of exactly what you're talking about and get your audience members to really understand where you're coming from and what is most relevant regarding your topic. And if you're going to do all of that to prepare for your speech, it's important that you pick a topic that you care about, something that resonates with you, that you're passionate about, that you truly believe is going to be beneficial for your audience. Another thing that Aristotle said, and Aristotle is my favorite philosopher, so you may hear a lot from him. He said that credible speakers have to have what's called a spirit of care. You should care about how the information that you share is going to impact your audience members. So in this spirit of care, we want to choose something that we really believe is going to benefit our audience members and that we care about ourselves. And if you care about it, it won't be a problem for you to become a real expert on this topic. If you don't already consider yourself an expert on this topic, then do more research, practice, put yourself out there, get as much information as you possibly can. Research your audience. That's another thing that is often suggested in regard to becoming more comfortable. As I said previously, males in particular typically have a lot of anxiety or more anxiety when they are presented to a culture that they're not familiar with, presented to a culture that they're not a part of. So you want to make as many connections with your audience as possible. You want to find out where the commonalities are. Where do we meet up as individuals so you can be more comfortable with them? This is true for males and females. It's just that typically males are more likely to experience anxiety based on cultural differences. Practice, practice, practice. I cannot say that enough. You have to practice in order to feel comfortable with your material, in order to feel like you know what you're talking about, in order to visualize effectively, transition from point to point. It's important that you practice. Practice the way that you plan on presenting your speech. Put on your clothes. Pull up a PowerPoint so you can go through your slides. Project your voice is the exact same way that you plan on it, projecting your voice during your presentation. Do that during your practice. Some people even suggest standing in a mirror to actually see what you look like as you're presenting. If that's too much for you, most people have smartphones. Get someone to record you practicing your speech so that you can go back and look at that and see areas for improvement. It's also really good if you can get an audience. Get friends and family members to watch you doing your presentation. They can provide suggestions for how you can do better the next time. They can provide suggestions for information that you might include to make what you've said more clear. So there are so many benefits to making sure that you practice. Practice alone, practice with the recording, practice in the mirror, practice with various audience members. All of this is very important. Even if you'd like to practice with me, if you'd like for me to send you a link for a Zoom session and you want to go over your speech and you want me to tell you how you can take what you have and make that an A, I'm willing to do that. So it's very important. Can't say it enough. Practice, practice, practice. The last suggestion is to know your introduction and conclusion well. I wish I had a better word than well. I think you should really know your introduction and conclusion like the back of your hand. The best thing to do in terms of having a good speech and feeling comfortable and confident in your speech is to really know what you're talking about. You should practice your introduction so much that you know it the way that you know your birthday or your address or your phone number. It should flow. And you should have practiced your introduction so much that not only do you know the words, but you know exactly how you want to say the words, that it should flow like a song from you. The same thing with your conclusion, because those are the most important parts, because typically when we organize our speech, we seek to preview our main points in the introduction, elaborate on those main points in the body, and re-emphasize those main points in the conclusion. So when we preview and we re-emphasize in the introduction and conclusion, those are the things that are going to help strengthen the understanding of our speech and help reinforce the audience's ability to retain those concepts, to remember exactly what you were talking about and exactly what you wanted them to understand. All right, so on the day of your speech, it's important that you dress for the occasion, dress to impress, dress in something that makes you feel comfortable. I typically like to say that you should probably wear professional attire when you're doing your presentation. But if there's a topic that lends itself to a particular style of dress and you want to wear something that basically connects to whatever your topic is, that is perfectly fine. I always want you guys to feel comfortable and confident no matter what the occasion is. So make sure that you're dressing in a way that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you feel confident and proud to present yourself. Make sure that you keep your materials organized. That's very important. You don't want to mix up your cue cards and be lost fumbling through your index cards. I call them cue cards while you're doing your presentation. That will spike your anxiety. If you're experiencing any type of anxiety and you have to sit there awkwardly for a few seconds or even a minute sometimes to try to go through your index cards to figure out what you should be saying next, that is not a good thing. So make sure that you're organized and you have everything put together. Arrive early. It's good to not wait until the last minute to come into the speech presentation arena, to come into the space that you're going to be presenting in, even when it's online. This is an online class, so your major speeches are going to be presented via web conferencing. Do not wait until speeches have started to log in. I always recommend that you log in at least 15, sometimes even 20 minutes before it's time for you to present your speech, so that you can test out the equipment, make sure that you're able to share your screen if you have a PowerPoint presentation. It's always better just to be prepared with contingencies, just in case something isn't working properly. You never know what's going to happen. So make sure that you come early if you have a face-to-face class. Make sure that you log in early if you have a online presentation. And even in the future, when you're giving presentations for your work or for personal reasons, make sure that you're in that space early enough to get comfortable and fill out the space, see what's going on, see if the technology is working properly. There's so many benefits to arriving early. Make sure that you do that. One of the benefits in particular is to be able to talk with other individuals at the event. If you do not know the people that you're speaking with, it makes you so much more confident and comfortable if you're able to go out and have small talk, to chit chat with the people who are out there, and to see that they're friendly and to see that they're human beings, and just to realize that you may have a bit more of a connection with those individuals than you originally would have thought. That's a very good practice. A lot of people do it all the time, and I've heard so many people suggest that it has been beneficial for them to walk around and mingle before presentations, to attach some names with some faces, see who those friendly faces are, and to really just get to know their audience before their presentation. As I stated earlier, use positive self-talk. Relabel those negative terminologies that are associated with anxiety. Think positively. Think about how good you're going to feel when you've completed your presentation. Think about how phenomenal of a job you're going to do. Make sure that you're saying good things, that you're feeding into your spirit positive terminology. Make sure that the technical aspects are ready to go. If you have PowerPoints, try those out. Make sure that your clicker is working appropriately if you have one. Make sure that any links to videos are working appropriately, because sometimes people have issues playing their videos even though their PowerPoint is working okay. So make sure you test that out. Another suggestion is to concentrate on other speakers. So if you have other individuals who are going to do a presentation before you, in order to kind of release some of your anxiety, it's important to listen attentively to the other speakers. You've already practiced your speech. You don't have to worry about your speech. You already know what you're talking about. When you get to the speech and when you get to the event and other individuals are speaking, focus on them. Listen to them. Give them the same respect that you want them to give you. But also that gives you yourself a mental break from thinking about your anxiety, thinking about your speech. Also, at the end of their speech, if there's a Q&A opportunity, ask questions. That gives you an opportunity to warm up your voice if it's not already warm. It also gives you an opportunity to speak in front of your audience before it's actually time for you to give your presentation. That's an amazing idea that I practice myself, so I know that it can work for some individuals. So I think even if you guys want to log in before your speech and, chit chat, get to know one another in the class, particularly because this is an online class and you don't have many interactions with one another, make sure that you're doing that because it can take a load off in terms of anxiety. During your speech, make sure that you look positive, polished, well put together, hopeful, excited, smile, put your head up, roll your shoulders back, have a presence. When you walk on the stage, make sure that you walk on the stage as if you are completely confident in your ability to excel. Make sure that you look the part of a credible speaker. Expect some anxiety because if you expect it, then you're prepared for it when it happens. Most people do experience anxiety, and as I said, it's just a release of extra energy. Think about that energy as something that's beneficial because it's going to allow you to be a dynamic speaker. Make sure that you turn your anxiety into productive energy that allows you to work the floor. Don't try to stand in one spot because more than likely, if you don't have something else to focus that energy on, you're going to be all over the place. If you feel like you'll be more comfortable standing on one spot and not working the floor or using the entire stage during your presentation, there are some suggestions for repositioning energy. Some people say to hold on to a coin and squeeze the coin. I have Play-Doh, which is kind of funny. I have Play-Doh. Some of my students in my face-to-face classes use Play-Doh to squeeze, to reposition some of their energy. I've even had individuals who wiggle their toes. If they have closed toe shoes on and you have a lot of energy and you want to stay in one place and you don't want to hold on to the podium because that can be a distraction and you don't want to use the coin, you can put all of your energy into your feet and wiggle your toes and no one will know that you're doing that. So make sure that you're avoiding overanalyzing your anxiety. Don't think about it. Don't think about the idea that some people may recognize that you're anxious. We're all human and we're all in this class to grow as individuals. So don't even worry about your anxiety. I know it's easier said than done, but try your best to focus on other things other than the anxiety. Never comment on your anxiety. I have this so often. I have students who get on stage and they say, "Oh, I'm so nervous, y'all. Y'all excuse me, I'm a little nervous." Something like that. There's always at least a few students who get up and they announce that they're experiencing anxiety. You do not want to do that. You do not want to give people a reason to look for your anxiety. Because more than likely, if someone says that they're anxious, then I prepared myself for them not to do well. I prepared myself for them to have nervous tics that I'm looking for. So don't announce your anxiety. Focus on your audience. Pay attention to feedback. Look for positive faces. Look for people who are really interested in your topic and who are attentive and who are nodding and they're giving you pleasant expressions. That's what you want to look for because it enforces the idea that you're doing well and that you've picked a good topic and that your audience is into whatever you're talking about. Make no apologies or excuses. Now, if you stumble over a word, it's okay to say, "Excuse me." But other than that, we're not going to apologize for our topics or for any anxiety we experience. We're moving forward in a positive way. After you have presented, it is very important that you evaluate your presentation, evaluate what strategies made you feel more comfortable and more confident. Listen to audience questions, be prepared. It's important that you're overly prepared. That's why we say that you should be an expert on your topic and you should pick something that you're really passionate about because more than likely you won't have time to say everything about the topic that you might want to say, but you can add some additional information if audience members ask questions. And you want to be prepared for any question they could potentially ask. So make sure that you have as much information on your topic as possible and that you're listening clearly for what questions they may ask. Also, recognize that anxiety can persist. Some people experience anxiety even after their presentation. After they've completely finished, it takes a while for that extra energy to dissipate. Make sure that you reinforce your confidence by saying good things about what you've done that were positive. If you finish the entire speech, oh, that was awesome. I completed the entire speech. Oh, and I did so within the time frame that I was supposed to. And I didn't say as many times as I thought I was going to say and I made really good eye contact with my audience members, and I didn't shake a lot, or I didn't hold on to the podium. All the positive things that you can think of, all of the good things from your presentation. Think about those things, because that's going to help you in the future in regards to being confident about some aspect about your ability or some aspect of your ability. Identify useful strategies for managing anxiety. So think about those things that you tried that worked well for you, and develop a plan for the future. This is not going to be your last speech. Even the last speech for this class is not going to be your last speech, period. So make sure that you think about what things worked, what things can I try next time, what did I feel most comfortable and confident about. Do that, and I promise you will grow as a communicator. You will grow in your ability to minimize your stress, to minimize your anxiety. Make sure that you are thinking about what things work best for you, and that way you'll be able to use that knowledge to better prepare for future presentations. Okay, guys, those are all the slides that I have for you. Make sure that you read the entire chapter yourself so that you'll have a good idea of these various strategies. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to email me at any time at jhudson@prcc.edu, or you can call or text me at 601-270-2207. I hope that this information has been beneficial for you. If you need anything, I'm here for you. I am your resource. Don't hesitate to reach out.